Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. Welcome back, everybody, to the Cycle Breakers Show. I am joined by one of my favorite humans in the world, Ron Lynch, known as the $4 billion man. The last we talked, that may have increased since then. But Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. It's good to see you again.
You too. It's been a while, but the one time we did hang out in person, it was awesome, and I enjoyed learning. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID era.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been.
So we communicate a lot, so that's good.
That's right. So let's first talk about, who you are, what you do, what, your kind of journey to becoming the $4 billion man.
Well, I didn't start out that way, that's for sure. I grew up poor. I started working in a International House of Pancakes as a dishwasher when I was 13. So I worked every kind of odd job a person could work between 13 and 20. I had a desire to be in movies, and I lucked out when I was about 20. My college roommate got auditioned for a movie that Robert Altman was directing, and he asked me if I'd want to come along, and I did, and I landed a role in this movie. So I was in a movie with working every day with Jeff Daniels and Peter Gallagher and Eric Bogosian and Robert Altman and all these kind of big Hollywood people, and it got me a ticket at the table. And from there, I made about a dozen movies as an actor, tiny little parts, but I stayed around and I learned how films were made. So I'd work for 2 or 3 days as an actor and stay around for 30 days doing some job on the set, whether that was bringing people coffee or just hanging out. And a lot of directors just let me hang out and go to dailies every day. And I did that for a number of years and ended up being in movies with Shirley MacLaine and River Phoenix and Jeff Bridges. So I kind of got to know Hollywood people and how Hollywood worked. And I always wanted to be one of them. And I think the experience with River Phoenix kind of talked me out of it. I saw where a lot of fame and attention and approval could get you killed. And I'd met my wife at about that time, and we were just starting to date. And I decided to stick with my day job. I was a grocery checker by day. And I stuck with that job and eventually worked my way up to become an operational director of a grocery retailer. And then became a person who did store installations of taking gentrified stores and turning them into Whole Food type stores. And then doing turnarounds for banks for stores that were failing. And in the nighttime, I was writing movies just for fun. And a friend of mine was launching the George Foreman Grill in their ad agency, and they needed space in a grocery store to shoot some demonstrations. And I had a grocery store, and I met George Foreman's agent, and I sold him a movie. And a couple of weeks later, I was back in that business, and I was actually making TV commercials. And so this was a week after 9/11. I left the grocery business. And so for 25 years, I've been writing and directing advertising campaigns, but I had P&L experience. So in a lot of these companies, I go in and I look at it from business optics first and help them grow the companies. So those companies have included Rug Doctor, Eagle One, Auto Appearance Products, Car Wax, GoPro. We launched GoPro, all kinds of stuff that people have in their house, OxyClean with Billy Mays.
Yeah.
And so that's where the billions of dollars comes from, is direct receipts. So those companies have done a lot more money than that number, but those are my personal receipts for growth that I've generated. And so now I own some of my own brands. I invest in things. I invest in technology. I have about 40 technology patents of stuff that I just thunk up on airplanes, and some of those are working and functioning. And so I sit on boards for people. I do advertising for people. I teach people how to do this. I have a lot of students. And at the same time, I had to go through a lot of personal growth to go from being a poor person from a poor family that was a little bit emotionally abusive to being an adult that's healthy with healthy kids myself. And I've been married for 35 years, so God bless her.
That's awesome. So I know that you, in your programs, there is a massive focus on the identity piece and the mindset piece. So when people come in and they want to become, whether it's more influential, more persuasive in their communication, their writing, whatever it is, what do you find is the biggest cycles they have to break to achieve that?
Most people want two things that they're sold in America, and that is they want to be rich and they want to be famous. And they think rich will make them famous and famous will make them rich. So they want one of those two things to get the other one. And I will tell you that neither of those things is a very wise goal. We know rich people, and rich people spend their money and are lavish and are very in your face about their money. They end up being poor people. It's much wiser to be wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Famous is equally a trap, because once everybody knows you, you can't go anywhere without people filming you, taking note of you, asking you for things. You become a piece of meat that everybody wants something from you, and you don't. And you hear famous people say this all the time, that they don't know who around them is sincere. And that's what I learned from River Phoenix, was he had a gaggle of people around him that he was financially supporting. And every time he went out for dinner, everybody expected him to pick up the tab. And everything that he did, people approved of, even when it was naughty. So it's hard to maintain character. So I look at those two things first. And first is, I help people shift their idea about what money is and where it comes from. Because money actually, we're kind of taught to be predatory about it. We're taught that we get money from other people. And while that's true, the people who sustainably get cash flow from other people are people who provide them with an incredible, valuable tool. The people are getting something out of it. So while I don't like Bill Gates that much, I do understand the value of Word and Excel, and that our whole personal business and business culture has been built on those two products. So he's gained incredible wealth for him and the stockholders and his employees, primarily off those two products over the years. It wasn't so much even his operating system, because if you go to Mac, you're still dragging over Word and Excel documents because you're used to that. So providing value and getting people to see if I'm actually giving people something of value, that's where my wealth comes from. Then if I'm doing that, that's where my identity comes from. And the identity is much more important than fame. Knowing who you are is way more important than convincing people who you want them to think you are. So I move people from two false paradigms that society has sold them into two truer, sustainable paradigms that you can actually feel good about and live in. So I'm not famous and I'm not rich, but I am wealthy and I have identity and I'm quite under the radar. And I can go anywhere in the world and nobody knows who the heck I am. I've never had anybody stop me on the street and go, "Hey, are you that guy?" Not once. And there's tremendous freedom in that. But then I have the wherewithal that if I want to tip my Uber driver $100, I can do that without batting an eye.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting awakening happening in the world, where now people are seeing, especially with cancel culture becoming what it has in the last couple of years, that also being famous, there's now all these expectations on you to speak up about every, social justice movement, and to, that you always have to be talking about these things, and you can no longer really value what you value, but you have to value what the masses say. And so I think, it's powerful reminding people that flying under the radar.
I just had this experience. I just directed a movie for Robert Kennedy Jr.'s publishing company called The Real RFK Jr. Now, he's running for president. I think people assumed that I would make a film that was political in nature and promoted him as a politician. And what I did was an expose of who he was as a man. I did an identity piece about the value of who the person actually was. And in the context of publicizing that, somebody approached me and said, "You are a Christian man. Where do you stand on abortion? I can't believe you support this man because he stands on X side of this issue. Where you need to publicly state where you stand." And my response was, "Thank you for defining that. You're right. I am a Christian man. I stand with Jesus. I have a great compassion for anybody who is in that situation. I probably felt different about it when I was 18, 19, or 20, where there was a higher probability of that happening in my life. Fortunately, it didn't. But at this age, I could say, I wouldn't participate in that. But I also have great empathy for the people who are going through that. And I have plenty of sins in my life, if you want to classify that as a sin. I think I tend to look at that more compassionately. So that kind of put that person, I think, a little bit on their heels, but I think they deserve to be on their heels. So you can see how, like, being principled in my identity was the solve in that situation.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I think it's important, if we're going to get any sense of normalcy back, that we stop just caving to the cancel culture ideologies.
I agree with you. I don't believe that we are going to get any sense of normalcy back, by the way, because this escalation has been going forward since I was a child, and it's only getting weirder and weirder. So I'm just kind of excited about the future, and I don't really mind the mayhem.
And maybe that's a cycle that we all need to break. Instead of looking to go back to what feels familiar, how do we then, do you have any tips for people listening, how we can embrace, the constant change and what sometimes is chaos? Yeah,
absolutely. And I know you had my two good friends and mentees on this program, Kyrie being one, and Jesse. And Jesse and I are we call each other friend-tors, because I get just as much out of the relationship as he does from a mentee perspective. But my answer is, for everybody, is actually to connect with God. That your personal connection with God solves all of this. That's actually what we're driving towards as a culture, is people surrendering. And I've written books on biblical prophecy, and that makes people nervous. And they go, well, what should I do? As the world gets worse and more chaotic, what should I do? And my answer is always surrender. Is plan for the worst, hope for the best, and surrender. And in your career, surrender. In your family, surrender. Because God put you here to become you, not to do anything. God's not upset whether you get a 3.6 in high school GPA or a 2.2. And the A students work for the B students, who work for the C students in this world anyways. So you're just simply here to have your experience in this period of the timeline, so that when you get to eternity, you can be you. And we can distinguish you from everybody else. And we tend to get too caught up in, what do I need to be? What do I need to do? What are the steps? And when I surrendered and I got up in the morning and I went, okay, my calendar's clear, Lord, what do you want me to do? My phone rings. And then it's like Mission Impossible. The thing comes in. Someone says, hey, I want you to write this. Hey, can you come help our company? Hey, can you make this movie for me? Hey, And then my wife says, hey, can we go out to this place for dinner? And my kids call and say, hey, I wrecked my car. Can you give me some money? And my purpose is fulfilled. I'm serving a bunch of people in a bunch of different ways, and money comes in this way and it goes out that way. And my time is filled, and the integration of my personality with the circumstances of the moment is perfect. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anything. I just have to be me and make my calendar open. And God says, this is what you're going to do. And I surrender and I do that thing. Because every time I work on my plan, I'm delaying his. I'm actually interfering with the plan. And so if I just back off and let him drive, like even right now, I don't feel like I'm speaking to you. I feel like I've turned the radio to his station and he's now communicating with you. And he's saying, this is kind of what I'd like you and your people to hear. Do you get that sense? I get that sense even saying this. I don't think I'm this articulate. But I feel like I turn the radio over to him and he goes, I'm going to play this song for these people right now. I hope they hear it. And that's it. Transmission over. And I go, okay. That's why I was here today, was to say just that.
It's funny that you say that, because when we first started the show, Sid is less experienced with interviewing than I am over the years. And so he was like, we need to create like set questions. And I was like, that's cool. If that's what makes you feel comfortable on an interview, do it. But I'm just going to let, like, wherever this is supposed to go is where it's going to go. And the question, I don't have any predetermined questions for you other than that first one of, who you are, who are you, what do you do? And the questions just come. And the conversation goes where it needs to go. And we always get messages from people saying, I needed that piece. And I'm like, cool, because you wouldn't have gotten it if I had scripted questions here for you.
Yep. And I mean, I do documentaries and interviews for a living. That's a great portion of my work. I rarely come with scripted questions because a person says something and I just respond to what they say and ask them more about it because they're obviously interested in that. I think I'd be a pretty good cop because I think I'd get people to admit to an awful lot of things in interrogation because people want to tell you stuff. And if you just sit back and let them do their thing, they'll give you more and more and more. I've had people say things on camera that they would not tell me privately, which blows me away. But it happens all the time. Just by giving them enough rope and they, boom, pretty soon you got content that no one else will get. So I think you're wise to do that. I think this is a really smart tactic.
I want to talk about the surrender piece, because when I was in one of the most challenging phases of my life, I had the breakup, the infidelity, just gone through the miscarriage. And I was in so much pain and people kept telling me, just surrender. And in my mind, because I was a hyper masculine woman, this ultra independent, I don't need a man place in my life. To me, that looks like waving the white flag. And it took me so long to understand that surrender is not giving up.
Right. And that's why words matter. The lexicon that we use, we spell words, we cast spells. These words all matter. So surrender to me is if you're in white water, if you're in the ocean against a riptide, if you're in an ocean against a riptide, and you try to swim in, you will die. Riptides go cross. So if you swim across from the beach 50 yards, you'll go in. Because it's a channel, it's a water channel that's making the riptide. It's literally just a channel in the water that you can't see that's pushing you back. So if you swim it, and I say this from experience, I was in Hawaii and I got caught in a riptide and I swam my guts out for an hour to get about 50 yards. And then someone taught me this, and it happened again. And I swam 50 yards that way with complete ease and swam in with no problem, and the ocean brought me in. And I was like, this is what surrender. When you're in white water, watch something go down a river. Watch a leaf go down a river. You ever see a leaf drown? Nope, it just goes with the water because it's surrendered. Is it giving up? No. It's using the forces that are at hand, that are greater than you. In this case, God. This is the force that you are always immersed in. God is the river. This is why Bruce Lee says, be the water. That's what he's saying. He's saying that there's a force that's greater than you that is the water that surrounds you. The Holy Spirit, holy water, WH, holy. That this is surrounding you. And if you immerse yourself in it and relax and let it do its work, suddenly you have power and influence because you're only having to do the last little bit that makes the difference.
That's such a great, I wish that I had this podcast episode 10 years ago, because I kept trying to force the surrender, right? And it was like, and I think a lot of manifestation coaches and law of attraction, which absolutely I believe is a powerful, excuse me, influence. But I think there's a lot of, manifestation conversations out there that talk about this that kind of take us in the wrong way, where we feel like we have to be doing something or forcing something.
I think we're thinking we're forcing something. Jesse might have said this when he talked to you. I don't know, but I came up with this idea about 15 years ago or 10 years ago. That's because I did a program on the law of attraction right after The Secret came out. I did a program with Jack Canfield, and we had everybody who was in The Secret I got to interview and sit down with. And I walked away from that scratching my head, because it was vision boards and imagination and like, oh, all I got to do is imagine this stuff and ask, believe, and receive. And I'm like, no, that's not true. That doesn't work for everybody. In fact, it doesn't work for anybody, because you're all here doing something. It's the law of traction. It's figuring out which way your life is going, and in the positive sense, and putting some effort into that and going along with it. And when you meet resistance, realizing everybody meets resistance, and every obstacle you have turns out to be something good. I mentioned I was in a movie with Shirley MacLaine. It was the worst day of my life. She hated me. Do you know how good it is to immediately realize that the worst day of your life is behind you? After that day, I knew the worst day. I had humiliation. It was public. It was in front of camera. It was in front of directors and all. She was a complete jerk to me. Everybody else knew it, though. But once I discovered everybody else knew it, suddenly it wasn't the worst day of my life, and it was behind me. And I just moved forward. And I think if you realize, pick that day out of your history where the worst thing happened and go, okay, the worst day of my life's behind me. Now I'm going to surrender to the path of not what I want, of God, what do you want for me? Because that's going to be better. When I was 10, I thought I'd be living in a house in Italy, driving a Ferrari in a castle. Then I realized all of the expenses that, like, I have friends that are billionaires that have jets and multiple houses and all this nonsense, and it cost them $100 million a year to live in that lifestyle. Yet they still get the call for the maintenance on this house and the thing with the jet and the thing with the. I'm like, I don't want any of those calls. And here God put me in this little house in the country that I own on an antelope farm that has very low maintenance. And I have the most relaxing, peaceful life, yet I still get to participate in the game. I feel like I have it better than any of them. My kids love me. They come over. We're spending Father's Day together. Like, this is as good as it gets. So surrender is signing up for what you've been signed up for. There's already something there for you. And it's there for every single person. It's us that screw it up.
I 100% agree with you there. So when somebody's in that obstacle, you said the obstacle, to kind of paraphrase Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way. When we're in the obstacle and we're feeling that frustration and all the human emotion, how do we find the positive current?
What am I learning here? That's the question. When you're in deep pain, when you're in deep frustration, what am I learning here? Is the first question. Second question is, if I'm learning that, who am I going to be? Right there, you have to pick whether you're the victim or the villain or the hero. I mean, that was a really good book. That book that I think it's, what is it? Is it Crucial Confrontations or one of those? Like this idea of being the victim, the villain, or the hero. Like, I'm in the middle of absolute crap. What's the lesson here? What am I learning? And who do I want to be? Well, if I start whining and screaming, I'm the victim. If I start attacking, I'm the villain. If I'm Bruce Lee, if I'm James Bond, if I'm smart and charismatic and carry myself through, it's going to be less painful. I will have more character. The people around me will perceive me as having more character because I'll actually have more character, and I will slowly level up because I'm now learning I'm no longer fighting. It's no longer an obstacle. An obstacle is the way. I'm now standing on the obstacle, going higher. And that's what Ryan means when he says that.
So resistance to the obstacle keeps us in the cycle and creates other shitty cycles to go with it.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it too much, you're admiring it. This is like if you complain about the devil. I can't believe the devil is doing this to me. He's attacking. Like, you hear people say this stuff and it's nonsense. I'm like, first of all, I'm not even sure the devil's here. We do plenty of our own stuff. We don't need him. But second, you're actually praising him. You're saying how talented and smart he is at screwing up your life and how much control he has. Like, or now you can substitute that moniker with your opponent or someone evil or your boss or your spouse or your kid or whoever you want to. Why are you worshiping that? Why are you making the obstacle the obstacle? Why are you bowing down to it? Like, oh, well, this is something I can level up from, that I can project myself off of, or something I can care for. What if you nurture the obstacle? Sometimes that's how it goes away.
The attachment to the obstacle is interesting in a society that has started to idolize the victim. And I always think of, in one of his books, Joe Dispenza talks about, we have an attachment to our personality. So we continue to choose the people daily that allow us to stay in that personality instead of leveling up. So I love what you said there about, like, we're idolizing it, but saying that we don't want to be in it. And we have to recognize that cycle before we can use the obstacle to our advantage.
Yeah, and I think that obstacles are worthwhile because they do ensure growth. One of the things that I see over and over in business, particularly in people under 40, and this does not mean that it stops when you're 40. I see people that do this all the way into their 60s, is attempting to get accolades or attention or the credit, the luster of expertise or doing something that they've never actually done consistently. I want to be seen as the expert in this. Like, I see this in advertising all the time. So I don't get invited to a lot of trade shows to speak. I don't get invited on lots of guru marketing podcasts and stuff because I am known for saying, show me your GoPro. Show me your Samsung robotic vacuum. Show me because a lot of these folks in this industry have had an exciting email campaign with Joe's yoga program. And they're acting like they solved the science that SpaceX is doing for NASA. It's like, you've done something good, but at a very rudimentary level. You can't exalt yourself to the level of expert or master. Go do the freaking work. Why don't? Because it's available. Why don't you just go learn to paint before you call yourself a painter? Like, really go learn to do it well. Get some mastery, get some reps, get some stickers for your NASCAR before you act like you got stickers for your NASCAR. Like, just go do it first. Well, it'd be just a lot easier if people paid me to believe that I might be able to, and I can pretend I did. Okay. There's no cure for that.
Yeah, we see this a lot as well with people at the beginning of their coaching journeys, where they see the gurus talking about, I work 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, I'm making millions, I don't use funnels, but come to my workshop where I'm going to sell you into something, even though I don't use funnels, right? And they're like, well, I want that. And I'm like, well, but what they haven't shown you is the reps that they put in to get the email list or to get the audience to have that lifestyle. And so that, I think I don't know if this started with participation trophies or a misconstruing growth mindset versus fixed mindset, but the effort piece definitely seems to be lost in translation.
A little bit of it's related to trophy culture too, because people don't like to be told their work's bad. I wrote this, it's done. Oh, you wrote it, therefore it's done. Oh, no, you wrote it, therefore it started. Rewrite, go back, make it good. Done is not good. Done is just done. Good is good, great is great, excellent is excellent. I write a lot of things. I write nothing that's excellent. I start it good. I don't start it okay, but I got the reps that I start it good. Like I've been throwing this clay long enough as a potter, I start it good. But then I get to great, and I know great. But I don't know excellent. Do you know who knows excellent? The audience.
Mm-hmm.
They get to decide whether it's excellent. The result is excellent. I can make a movie. I mean, there's a lot of movies that come out every year, thousands and thousands of movies. And you feel like, oh, it's so unusual to make a movie. No, thousands of movies get made every year. Millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars get spent on it. How many of them are excellent? Oh, there's 5 Oscars and 4 that don't get nominated that should have been. So there's 9 good ones a year, like really excellent, mind blowers. And then there's probably 60 that you've never heard of or seen because they had no marketing money. And the audience picks. So I don't do excellent. I do the best I can, which is, I think, pretty good or great sometimes. And sometimes my great turns out to be crap. Nobody gets it. So that's not so great. But I don't know until I go into the real world. So until you've gone into the real world with 4 or 5 or 6 greats and pumped out 2 or 3 excellents for different people, companies, categories, mind you, now I can say, all right, you should be on the team. Now you're okay. You're ready to catch a ball from Tom Brady. Because I don't like Tom Brady that much, but damn it, he can throw a football.
He can. Just got inducted into the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, if he'd retired earlier, it happened earlier. I'm not kidding.
I am a Tom Brady fan only because in college I had a sports sociology class, and I wrote about Cinderella stories, and the Patriots and Tom Brady were one of those stories. So
I don't like him for a very good reason. I'm jealous of him.
there we go. At least you can admit it.
He's taller and better looking and more physically capable. I'm jealous, but at least I'm telling you, yeah, and he cheats with Belichick, but that's a whole nother game.
that came out in the roast. So if there was one lesson that you wanted people to walk away from this episode with, what would it be?
It's a lesson of the alchemist. It's already inside of you. Get the cobwebs off yourself. It's already inside of you. God did not send you here with 3 missing pieces going, gee, I hope Tiffany finds those 3 parts I left out. You came complete. You have it. What the problem is you've let everybody else gunk up your machinery with bogus beliefs about yourself that actually diminish you. When you were 5, you believed you could. You were right.
I can confirm this. Like my 2-year-old, there is nothing in his mind that he can't do.
He's right. Don't do anything to tarnish that. Just give discipline. And discipline is different than punishment. Mm-hmm. People try to make their children obey. That's the worst thing you can teach your child to do, because obedience begets servitude, not servitude.
Mm.
Discipline is when you do something wrong, you know why it's wrong. It's been explained to you, and it's been explained why it hurts others or why it hurts yourself. That's disciplinary. Punishment is simply retribution and revenge. Discipline is knowledge-based growth with constructive criticism, parameters, and sometimes consequences, because there should be consequences, but the punishment should fit the crime.
Absolutely.
And within that, you want your kid to have parameters because that's where creativity happens. If you said, go build me a sandcastle in the desert, you'd be like, where do I start? But if you have a box with sand in it, you say, go build me a sandcastle, I know where to build the sandcastle, about what size it can be. And once I build one, and you say, build a bigger one, the second time I go back, I've got experience. So now instead of building the castle, I dig a hole in the middle of the sandbox, because now I've learned that the key to building a big sand castle is having more sand. And if I build sand on sand, half the sand is under my castle. But if I dig a hole first, I can make the whole castle out of sand, and I can make it much better. That's learning, that's experience, that's parameters, that's the difference between discipline and punishment.
I love it. How do people shake off those cobwebs to re-embrace that 5-year-old that knew they could?
They should probably leave their environment. This is why Native Americans used to go out on quest. This is why Jesus went out into the woods for 40 days. You leave your environment and go get in contact with nature, because nature is the path to God. Without a doubt. You are in his snow globe. All that stuff out there is made out of him. He spoke this all into existence. Get away from the bricks, the glass, and the people, the electronics. Go spend 5 days drug-free out in nature, and you can't not but become you.
I love it. I love it. Well, Ron, as always, my mind is even more expanded than when we started. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I appreciate it. I hope folks get much out of this conversation as I did.
Well, I'm going to recommend that everybody goes back and listens again with a piece of paper and a pen.
Right on. Thank you.